I am so thrilled to have sitting next to me Stuart Varney. Stuart, this is so kind of you. I have had so much fun being on your show. And the banter that's like during commercial break, it's been really fun.
There are some times when I think the banter during the commercial breaks could actually be on the air.
Oh, if they stream that,
a lot of people viewing, I think. But you're fun to have on the show, and we try to make it, I wouldn't say it's a humorous show, it's not like that, but we smile a lot.
Yeah.
Because, you know, viewers don't want some angry people fighting about money and politics. They like to see people with a smile on their face. And I think that delivers.
The velocity of what's coming at you, I mean, your show, 9 a.m. to noon, I mean, the whole business day, the whole world is waking up and you have things, I mean, it's amazing. It seems like every minute there's some new news kind of popping up and how to deal with it. And you got to keep smiling.
We decided a long time ago that the way to put business news in front of a wider audience, you don't use jargon. You don't talk about E3 or what is it? I can't remember. All this jargon from the Federal Reserve. Right. We don't do that. We simply don't do that. I want clarity. Direct yourself right at the nature of the story and present it in a nice fashion that the viewers want to hear.
All right, so you become a United States citizen. You got the most popular business show on Fox Business. You're dominating against the others. You love the sport that's, the beautiful game, which ranks high with me as well. But let's go back. I want to go to the Wayback Machine. Let's go back to like I was born in. Okay. And then kind of walk us through your journey because I'm just fascinated. On people that have had great success, there are inflection points. There's important points in their lives and that's what I want to hear about.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. Yeah. Born and raised in Derby. That's a town in the Midlands of England, at 120 miles north of London.
What were your parents doing? What was
my dad worked in a warehouse, a greengrocery warehouse, and he worked there for 50 years.
Wow. My
mother was a stay-at-home mom, as was the case all those years ago.
Yeah.
And so that was the family structure. Went to high school, graduated.
Do you have brothers, sisters? It was big family, small family?
Okay, I had two older brothers.
Yeah.
One of whom was killed in an air crash. He was a Navy flyer, killed in a training accident, and that was in 1960, a very long time ago. It really devastated the family.
Yeah.
And maybe I should tell you this, but a little later, when I was 19 years old, my first girlfriend was killed in a car crash.
Oh.
So those were tragedies of my life. And maybe I did something wrong back then because I put those tragedies in a box inside my head and forgot it, walked away from it, never opened that box. Maybe that's not such a good idea because the box leaks. And in later life, you might have some psychological problems because of the trauma that you hid. I didn't have any psychological problems, but at one time in my life, I was drinking far too much. And I think that was possibly due to my experiences in early life. Anyway, moving on from there, let's move on to something more positive, perhaps. Yeah. I went to the London School of Economics. But before I went to the LSE, as it's called, I did a year in the British Peace Corps.
Oh.
I worked in East Africa, in Kenya, in a home for destitute African boys.
Really?
Now, you just think of this. You're 18 years old. You've never been out of England before.
Right.
You get on a plane and suddenly you're in the game parks of East Africa. And you've got a responsible job teaching youngsters, destitute African boys in a good institution. That was quite an experience. You grew up fast,
Yeah. So good for you, but there's probably so many experiences and vivid memories. And I think it's important, our son, he went and served a mission for his church in Ghana. And he went there for 2 years, and it changed his life, and it changed his life for the better. And he participated in that service, and I'm proud of him for doing that because it really formed him.
The theory is that being in the British Peace Corps or the American Peace Corps, you are giving to these countries which need that help.
Right.
And that's true. You're helping. Right. But you get as much out of it as the country, and there's no question about that.
Right.
So I come back home from East Africa, And I went to the London School of Economics, which was an experience in and of itself, because the LSE was, and still is, the most radical left-wing college
Really?
in Europe. Oh, by a long way, yes.
Yeah.
It was founded by socialists, Sidney and Beatrice Webb, way back when. It was a socialist institution. And I was a socialist. I was.
Right.
So that's the way it was in those days. So I graduate from the LSE, and I always wanted to travel. Maybe that was because I've been in Kenya for so long.
Right.
So I wanted any job that I could get that would pay me as much as possible in the shortest possible period of time.
Sure.
I became a bus conductor in London.
Really?
I was a bus conductor. I was the guy on those red double-decker buses.
Yeah.
I'd be the guy with a machine strapped on the front. You wind out the tickets, give the tickets out, you take the money in. Strangely enough, I was a bus conductor on the day that Britain went to decimal currency.
Really?
Yes. So this was the
That'd
day
just screw you up.
the old money, you took the fares with the old money and you put it into your right-hand side bag and you give them change out of the new money in your left-hand bag.
Oh.
Nobody understood what was going on. It was utter chaos, absolute chaos. But that was an experience. Then I made the money and I set off around the world. And I traveled around the world for about 4 years.
Right.
I went from London all the way through Europe, Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal.
By yourself?
Burma, it was called Myanmar, down into Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, then to Australia.
Yeah.
I'd met a young lady on the way, and we got together in West Australia.
I've been to Western Australia. So you're in Perth?
Yeah, I was in Perth.
Yeah.
1972.
Wow.
That was a frontier in those
That's
days.
a little bit before the America's Cup and that whole...
That's right. But before all that, it was a village.
It is beautiful out there.
It is. It is.
We went to the Pinnacles.
Yep. Know it.
And Rottnest Island.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah. I really liked it out there. Yeah.
And then we literally hitchhiked from Perth all the way up the west coast.
How in the world do you do that?
To Darwin.
You got to be kidding me.
2,500
Nobody
miles.
does that.
And there's nobody there.
Even today they don't do that.
1972. It was amazing. We got as far as a town called Port Hedland, and there were no more cars. There were big trucks, which never stopped for you.
Yeah.
So we had to buy a car. I had no license, no insurance. I'd never driven a car before. And we bought an old Austin Anglia. And we drove it all the way from Port Hedland, this is 1,500 miles.
You look at that
Darwin.
on the map, folks. That's a long...
Huge.
That's crazy.
Then we sold the car.
What was interesting about Darwin, other than that's like the only city up in the northwest?
Just wanted to see it. It's a wild place.
Yeah.
A wild place.
No, you can't. They got the saltwater crocs.
They
They've
do.
got the
We slept on the beach for 6 weeks.
Oh.
And then we went from Darwin to Portuguese Timor, and I bet you cannot tell me the capital of Portuguese Timor.
Well, there's East Timor. I've been to Port
Moresby. That's Papua New Guinea.
But that's as close as I got. I was just trying to show proximity, but I've never been there. I can't tell you the capital.
The capital of Portuguese Timor is Dili.
Yeah.
And when we arrived in Portuguese Timor, I had to get a cholera shot from a Chinese doctor on the wharf, on the dock.
Oh, okay.
Where the plane. So then
You're still with us. So
then we went from there to Singapore.
Of
we
course.
went from Singapore to London. We hitchhiked to my parents' house in Derby, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Mum and Dad, this is Janet. She's my wife." That was a shock.
where did you get married along
No,
the way?
we were married actually in Derby. This is going
great.
to be my wife, actually.
Oh, okay.
So then we get married, go down to London, filled out all the forms to emigrate to America, emigrated to America, and I was a waiter in Stratford, Connecticut, and Westport, Connecticut, for a year.
What was the attraction to the United States? Like, why'd you want to? I mean, you've been everywhere else.
Janet's American.
Yeah.
And besides, I wanted to go. I was fascinated by it.
Right.
I'd had American flatmates whilst I was a student in London. That intrigued me. I'd always
Interesting.
mixed with Americans. So over we came.
So she's American,
She is.
and so she wanted to come, and it
that's right.
brought you here, and
Yeah.
you've been here pretty much ever since, right?
Well,
Or did you go? You actually went over to Hong Kong, right?
I went over again. We
Yeah.
worked for a year, earned the money, and then went back to London, went back through Europe, back through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, and into Pakistan, and then into India, then over to Nepal all over again. And then, what did we do then? Oh, then we went to Hong Kong. And I got a job in Radio Hong Kong, in the English language service.
What did you just say?
Radio Hong Kong.
Oh, that's
That's Radio Hong Kong. Got the job there. I loved it. That was my introduction to the media. And then I was there for 2 years. Then we went to San Francisco.